Daps Travels, the podcast. It is time for episode 3. I'm Mr. Daps, and I'm joined by my good friend.
I'm Johnny.
Yes, you are. And Johnny just got back from a glorious 1 week trip aboard the Disney Wonder. And you went from Canada to Alaska. And Alaska is one of my favorite places to go. And you're going to tell us all about it. But before they do that, what should they do? They should do a couple things, right?
I would say what you should do is definitely go give us a follow on Apple Podcasts and make sure you leave a 5-star rating. As 5-star ratings and everything like that really just help us get our name out there, can help us engage more, and really just get us out there so we can try to get some more listeners and everything like that, because we just love talking about travel, whether it be Disney, other things, everything like that.
And then also comment on this if you have any questions or thoughts that you'd like to add to the conversation. As we get comments, we will address those in future podcasts. And perhaps equally importantly to all of those things, share this with your friends, families, the random people that you meet that also enjoy traveling in the Disney fashion and the Disney Cruise Line in particular, right?
Exactly.
All right, let's get into it. You went on the Disney Wonder, and it was a week-long trip. And actually, let's start with, what was the itinerary for this trip?
So we went on a 7-night Alaskan cruise departing from the Port of Vancouver. And the itinerary was a day at sea, followed by the glacier viewing.
Yes.
After that, we went to Skagway.
Also a favorite.
Then Juneau.
Great.
And then my personal favorite port, Ketchikan.
Ketchikan over Skagway, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll get to that. Yeah. And then was there a day at sea going back to Vancouver too?
There was a day at sea going between Ketchikan and Vancouver.
Very cool. Very cool. And talk about, how early did you book this? What amenities did you book ahead of time? What was the process leading up to going on your cruise?
So as we talked about in our first episode, I booked this cruise while I was aboard my sailing on the Disney Fantasy back in November. Mm-hmm. We booked a Category 2A Concierge 1-bedroom suite with veranda located on Deck 8 midship. We booked this specific room because it was actually the same room accommodations that we had on our fantasy sailing, and we absolutely adored the room and the level of service from the concierge on the fantasy, so we made the splurge to go ahead and book this category for this cruise, and it was absolutely worth it. One of the best amenities for a concierge, for me personally, is the planning that they do for you ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So they sent me an email approximately 135 days prior to my sail date, explaining that I can go ahead and email my request to them 130 days out for what I want to book for my port.
So basically 4 months ahead, right? Mm-hmm. Is that okay?
Yeah, a little over 4. Yeah, a little over 4 ahead.
Okay, cool.
But they got into contact with me and explained that if I just send them an email stating what we want to do and everything like that, that they will go ahead and get it booked for us and everything. So I utilized that service, and I sent them an email 130 days out of exactly what we wanted to do, what our plans were, and everything like that.
So let me get this right. You didn't have to go on the website or the app and click on, hey, I want to do this, or actually fill out all of that stuff. You literally just send an email hey, I want to do this excursion at this place, and they just...
Exactly.
Awesome.
It was really nice because I just went on the DCL website prior, so that way I can just get the name
to know what you want
for what the excursions we were going to be booking were.
Just to make sure they get the right one.
Yeah, just to make sure I got the right one, so that way they could notate it in the system and then add it to our profile accordingly.
I love that.
And it was so easy because then at 123 days out, once Pearl Castaway Club members are able to start booking their itineraries, everything like that, concierge itineraries appear within the Navigator app, and I was able to see that they got all of our Palo reservations taken care of, all of our port adventures taken care of, and we were able to get exactly everything that we wanted, no questions asked, and we didn't have to deal with the stress of waiting at midnight on the day when everything opens, trying to book everything before.
Which you hear about all the time. I have friends that go on the Disney Cruise Line, and they're like, yeah, I'm getting up at whenever, and I have to do this right then, especially when they're on the East Coast. It seems like it's a little bit more stressful. Because it's middle of the night or something you have to get
it's midnight Eastern Standard Time, so over 9 for us it's 9 p.m. so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I'm we could do that, but still there's that stress level, especially for the popular things, and that's great. How much of an upcharge is it from just that level of room adding concierge?
So it was quite an upcharge, because if I recall correctly, a family veranda stateroom on the Wonder for our sailing was around, I would say, 12,000, which is already a lot, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know Alaskan itineraries tend to be some of the most expensive amongst the cruise lines, given their popularity in general.
And it's justifiable. Like, if you've ever been or seen Alaska, it's literally a place like no other in the world, and it's gorgeous, and it is very limited in space, especially for cruise ships. And they probably have more than they want up there as it is right now anyway. All right, keep going. Sorry.
For us, we were able to kind of justify it because also when we're thinking about just the space aspect of it in general, the 1-bedroom suite that we had was a triple wide stateroom. So it was approximately the size of like 3 separate staterooms combined together.
Beautiful.
It was an absolutely beautiful room, very well appointed. It was one of the rooms that actually got refurbished in the Wonders Dry Dock back in, if I'm correct, 2023.
Okay.
So it had a brand new styling, very still tying into the nautical theming of the ship and everything, but it was just stunning. We absolutely loved it. It was great because there were 2 separate bathrooms, so I was able to have my own restroom and everything like that. My parents were able to have their own restroom as well. We had our own separate spaces, and then we had this beautiful elongated veranda going along the
I would have
starboard
spent
side
so
of the
much
ship.
time out there.
I spent so much time out there on the sea days. I remember going up to Cove Cafe and getting my coffee in the morning, and then just walking back downstairs and just relaxing on the veranda with it. It was spectacular.
So the 12,000 was with concierge? Without. So what's the difference then?
And then if I recall correctly, the entry level concierge stateroom was at 18.
Okay.
Which is, again, a concierge family veranda stateroom, and then the prices just get higher and higher versus like a 1-bedroom suite, because there's 2 different categories of 1-bedroom suites on the Wonder. You have your 2Bs, which are the standard ones. We were in a 2A, which is that triple wide one, because it's in a weird location on the ship. Because it's deck 8 midship, they're just wider. So they have a larger amount of square footage within the cabin.
But to put it into context, so I went on a similar cruise a year ago on Princess, and we didn't do concierge, but we did do the internet package, the drink package, which included like the specialty foods. And I think we got 2 or 3 specialty dining with that. So some of the amenities of a concierge thing. And if I recall, it was like, I think it was $4,000 per person or something like that. This might be a little bit high, but when you think of the Disney difference, you're adding concierge, and then we were just a balcony. Like, I think it was the bigger of the 2 balcony sized rooms, but not a suite, not the massive floor space, and not Disney. So no Disney characters, no Disney entertainment. Like, the entertainment was fine. It was great, but it's not that extra magic level. Not that it was the magic, but it would have been funny. But like, when you put it into context, it really isn't like, sure, it's something you save up for, but it's not that insane.
When I was actually pricing out the difference between, for example, like that room that we had on the Wonder versus other cruise lines, I was actually shocked to see how a lot of other cruise lines actually have that same price point for the same amenities.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
And I know that in general, especially a lot of Disney fans have become somewhat desensitized to Disney pricing, because as we all know, Disney advertises themselves as more of a premium brand now.
Yep.
Versus in comparison to, let's say, Carnival and Royal Caribbean, which there's no problems with that. I don't have any issues with that. But I was very shocked to see that those higher end luxury premium aspects of Disney Cruise Line were actually comparable to other cruise lines that have those same amenities and things like that. Like,
when I
Celebrity and
aren't there more expensive ones too? Like, aren't there more expensive for the Alaska cruise than Disney? If I remember when we were looking,
there are, because I was actually looking at an exact same Celebrity cruise sailing, same 7-night, pretty much same 7-night itinerary and whatnot, and for the same cabin equivalent that my family was in, it was still the same price point for 3 guests.
Yeah, I believe that completely. So you got to do all of this stuff ahead of time, which I think this is fascinating to talk about different price points, just because it contextualizes what you're getting and the price point you're saving or you're using, which to me is the value proposition of Disney Cruise versus Celebrity versus Princess, Royal, whatever. And I think that's important, just because there's a buy-in factor the moment you go on to any cruise. Like, other than some of these weekend, Carnival local ones where you can get a last-minute deal for a couple $100 for an inside room, but there's a value of going on a cruise, especially to Alaska, that is inherently there. One of them not having to repack each day and travel on a ferry to the next location and camping or whatever it is you end up doing. So I think it's just important to talk about that stuff. So you flew up to Vancouver, and
yes,
and this was your first time in Canada, right?
It was.
Yeah. So let's talk about your arrival in Canada and the arrival at the terminal process and getting on the ship. What was that like for this cruise?
Arrival at the YVR airport was actually so simple. Going through Canadian customs was such a breeze. I made sure to fill out everything ahead of time because we flew on Air Canada. And within their app, they actually showed what apps to download and things like that to make the customs experience entering Canada and re-entering the United States as seamless as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I downloaded the 2 apps that I needed ahead of time, filled out all of our customs information, and all they did was basically scan a QR code, and then we were good to go.
That's what we just did for Tokyo too. It's a wonderful thing.
It was so simple. So getting into Canada, super easy. We then got an Uber from the airport over to our hotel. We were actually staying at the Pan Pacific Vancouver for 2 nights prior to our cruise.
Such a cool view with that too.
The view we had was absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that hotel. I did have some gripes with the hotel, specifically in regards to how dated it felt, but that's just with any property you can stay at and whatnot. It did feel a little dated in regards to the decor and everything like that.
I think part of that is the location is like, there's that like, oh, we don't want to give up a room to renovate it.
I definitely think that's it, because it's, from what I've seen, they are consistently booked. So they probably just don't want to have to go through a refurbishment period for about a year.
Describe why it's such a great location.
This hotel is literally built into the Port of Vancouver, because the Port of Vancouver is in an area called Canada Place, mm-hmm. and Pan Pacific is built into Canada Place. The convenience is unparalleled because I took an elevator down to the ground floor and I just walked into the cruise terminal from within the building. I did not have to do anything. And on top of that, they have porters there at the hotel that will take care of your luggage the morning of your cruise. You call them up and they actually bring your luggage down to the port and everything like that, so it gets on the ship.
Which means no waiting in line for checking your luggage and having it delivered to your room if you're not concierge. And that's a gift. Also talk about the view from your room.
We had a port view, so it was actually really cool the morning that the Disney Wonder was coming back into Vancouver.
That's one of my favorite pictures you sent on this trip, by the way.
Because we actually got footage, and it was like 5:30 in the morning, and I was up, and we got to watch the Disney Wonder pull into the Port of Vancouver and park itself against the terminal. And it was just so cool getting to see the ship that we were about to sail on come into port and position itself right there, because I had that moment of like, oh my God, this is actually happening. Like, I'm about to get on this beautiful ship. And it was just so cool, especially just even seeing the seaplanes fly in and out of the water, everything like that, seeing all the other ships float by. It was just super, super cool.
I love that. Let's talk real quickly before you board the ship and tell us about that process. Talk about the look of this ship in comparison with other Disney Cruise Line ships, because this one, the original 2 are a little bit different than Fantasy and Treasure in newer ships of today.
Exterior wise, they're really not. It's kind of wild to see how all of them, to me, look the same, other than the fact that it's just small.
Mm-hmm.
When the Wonder pulled up to the port, I kind of looked at it and I was just like, oh, it's like the Fantasy, but it just shrunk a little.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Wonder is approximately, I think it's around 200 feet shorter than...
Which is a lot on a boat.
Which is a lot on a boat. I mean, to the naked eye, like when you're just looking at it first, you're still like, that's a big ship.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked at it, I'm just like, oh, this still feels like a big ship. Like, it's going to feel like the Fantasy. And it did not. But in regards to just pure aesthetics, all the ships look exactly the same. They look like these beautiful ocean liners straight out of the 1920s, 1930s. The big red funnels coming up, like you have the smokestacks and everything. They look beautiful. And it was really funny comparing the Wonder to the other ships that we saw in port. And this is no shade to any other cruise line or anything like that, especially because I have not sailed on any other cruise line, so I don't have the right to complain.
I feel like we need to fix that at some point, just so we can have a podcast about that, because I think it'd be funny.
But I just thought it was really funny because my mother and I were looking at all the different ships in port, and this is going to sound weird, but objectively speaking, they were all just so much uglier than what the Disney Wonder looked like, because the Disney Wonder had this element of beauty that went with it, just from the styling of it, from the point of the bow, how the stern was nice and rounded and it flowed seamlessly into the water, how the hull was painted, everything like that. There was so much attention to detail on that. And a great example was in Skagway. We were parked next to Quantum of the Seas,
which looks massive next to the Wonder.
It looks insane.
And I'm going to jump in
the Wonder
just for a second before you tell this story, because you told us this story in a group chat we have, and you literally were describing the ship next to you, and you didn't say the name of the ship. And Katie was like, "Was it Quantum of the Seas?" Because we observed this too. Keep going.
So, as we just said, we were next to Quantum of the Seas, but we were just walking back, and I was looking at the ship and just like, this is so ugly, and it looks so old
and rusted
mm-hmm. and just not as well maintained. And then I looked up how old the ship was. It had its maiden voyage in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see the paint peeling off the side of the ships. The hull looked rusted, everything like that. It just did not look like it was well maintained. Versus the Disney Wonder, which is 15 years older than it and looked like it was built 4 or 5 years after Quantum of the Seas debuted, because
it looks immaculate.
Disney takes such good care of the ships and everything like that. And in my opinion, it kind of ties into the 5 keys, because show is one of those keys.
Yeah.
And they take it very seriously on Disney Cruise Line, because there is not a single area of that ship that doesn't feel like it's maintained. Even the public restrooms that they had on board there for the common area, I was so surprised at how well they were maintained, even just looking at the grout lines, everything like that. Because that's one of the telltale signs of anywhere you go.
Which is funny, because you said that, and ever since then, I've been looking at grout lines. Like, even at the Grand I was at, I guess it was a month or two ago. Actually, I think we were there. But ever since you made that comment a few months ago, I was like, oh, I'm looking at grout lines now. And it really is
that's just one of those things that I was just so shocked at how well maintained the ship was, especially for it being pretty much as old as I am. I was not expecting it to look almost as if it was brand new.
Well,
you can tell it wasn't brand new based off of the styling of it and everything like that, because I don't see a lot of...
And no roller coaster on top.
I don't see a lot of classical styling like that done anymore for newer builds, but it just looked so well maintained, and it was just beautiful.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it was interesting when we were in Skagway, because we were Majestic Princess. And one of the things I noted when we were getting on in Seattle, which slightly different itinerary, is they were painting the Majestic Princess while we were boarding. And then the moment we got off at the end of the week, they immediately started painting it again. And I feel like Disney Cruise Line does the same thing, where it's like, oh, this is our however many hours. We got to get to work painting and make sure this thing's beautiful.
It's really funny that you mentioned that, because Disney was actually doing that in every port we were in.
See, there you go. And
because at every port we were in, we saw crew members going down the side, and they were painting the hull. They were touching up the white spots on it. It was kind of bizarre to see, because when I'm thinking about that, I kind of think of like that Disneyland mentality where
we're not supposed to see this happen.
Supposed to see this happening, but it makes sense, because the only time where it would be out of sight from guests would be in a dry dock, and that only happens every
however many years.
Every few years. So I do have to applaud DCL for just the level of care and maintenance that they put into keeping these ships in top form, because you are paying a significant premium for the Disney experience versus any other cruise line out there. It is very much well known that DCL has the highest entry level prices. And just to see that the level of maintenance and everything like that, you were getting that value. Going back to the value of it, you're getting those well manicured, maintained spaces. You don't walk on the ship and feel like it's been neglected. You can tell that every single part of the ship has been taken care of over time. And even when things have changed on it, venues have changed, there's still that level of detail that goes into maintaining the space.
Would you say the word is immaculate?
I would say that.
Okay. Like, as you were putting all those together, I'm like, I feel like the word is immaculate. Like, it's just immaculately maintained, and that's a great thing. So we have a beautiful ship. The pre-arrival is fantastic. let's talk about day of you're boarding the ship, and what was that experience like compared to previous one, and also what was your room like?
It was very different boarding the Wonder versus the Fantasy because Disney doesn't have a terminal up there.
Oh, that's
Port of
true.
Vancouver.
Yeah.
So we had to go through just like this big convention center room that they actually had set aside for the cruise ships for security and everything like that.
So it's for all the ships then?
Yeah, for all the different ships. So we boarded in the little Disney area. So we checked in with Disney Cruise Line. They verified our citizenship information. We then went downstairs to again go through U.S. Customs down there. And we entered through that. It was a quick process, everything like that. They checked our passports with the facial recognition, super simple. Went through security again, and then we got to wait in the waiting area to board the ship because the ship wasn't cleared for us to board yet. So we were in this waiting area.
You didn't show up early or anything, did you?
We actually showed up at like the earliest like port arrival time for us.
I was being funny. I was like, of course you did. You're the first one there, I'm sure.
That is actually true. Like
you have no shortage of enthusiasm for your trips.
We
like,
actually
I love
were after the family of the day was announced on the ship, because the family of the day is the first group that gets to board the ship.
Yeah.
We were actually the first to board after that.
See, I knew it.
So we went ahead and did that, but just boarding the ship, I was so taken aback because I wasn't actually expecting the atrium to be as small as it was. I don't know why, but I walked in there and it was like I was walking into the Disney Fantasy, but half of the atrium was missing.
Okay.
And this isn't a bad thing. I want to preface this to where I'm not upset at anything like that. It was just jarring versus my first experience being on a Dream Class ship, and those are known for the very large and grand atriums that have the Art Deco and Art Nouveau styling going into the Wonder, where it's like it still has those same elements, but it's just so small and intimate, and it feels warm and welcoming, and it doesn't feel super imposing. And I could see maybe even for like a little kid entering on the Disney Fantasy or Disney Dream, that they might feel like it's imposing because of how large everything is, kind of going in from that smaller perspective, versus on the Magic and Wonder, it just felt like a warm hug.
So is the analogy there going to Disneyland after you've been going to Walt Disney World your whole life? Because I feel like that's kind of the experience. Is it's that small town, like everybody knows your name.
I mean, I've said this already, and this is kind of like a hot take. Yeah. And I've said this amongst my friends, but I feel like the Magic and the Wonder are Disneyland, and the Dream and the Fantasy are Walt Disney World.
Okay, so exactly, yeah.
Because the Magic and Wonder are smaller ships, much more intimate, and it's the first, versus the Dream and the Fantasy, where they had time to kind of figure out some of the things that they didn't like, kind of plus it a little bit.
Have the blessing of space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it kind of just felt like that. And it felt like I was walking into Disneyland, like I was walking down Main Street, USA. And at the end of the street, I just saw the castle down there. And it was like that when I walked in, because I walked on and then I looked up and I saw this beautiful chandelier that reflected a red flower, which tied in with the Ariel statue, because Ariel is the character on the Wonder. And it was so beautiful. Of course, this is a shock to no one, I just cried. I started to cry because it just was so beautiful, and I couldn't believe that I was actually boarding this ship.
So you're saying I probably would love the Wonder, the Magic.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, I feel like those are, as you're saying all of those things, I'm like, oh, those are the things I connect with. Like,
I'm happy that Disney kind of figured out that the small ships work for them, and that they ordered 3 more from Meyer Werft, because as much as I love the Fantasy, and the Fantasy is still my favorite ship, having just such a small, intimate venue like that with a guest capacity that isn't 4,000, you could feel, it didn't feel overcrowded at any point going anywhere on the ship. It was just perfect. The level of service, the attentiveness, everything like that was phenomenal. Even for the high standard that I personally set for Disney, it was still elevated. Which
I think you have one of the highest, like, that's some of our most fun conversations, as we talk regularly about our feelings of what Disney is, what it should be, what it's doing great at, what it's maybe not hitting the mark on. And like, we geek out about that stuff all the time. I also think it'd be fun, once we get more information about the new ships, to do a comparison episode of like the different ships and classes and the pros and cons of each of those, and
holding out for an announcement at Destination D this year, because I would be thriving if I got a DCL announcement, considering we're getting a 4th West class ship.
I'm also very curious about the whole Japan thing too, especially since they basically flat out said was it a month ago
that we're ordering a second one.
Yeah, they're like, oh, when this one's successful, we're like, not if, when this one's successful, we'll be ordering a second one, which I think is fascinating. So you get on the ship. Was your room ready right away, or did you go up to concierge, or like what happened after you were once on board?
After we got on the ship, because we were sailing concierge, we actually got a private little lunch in Triton's restaurant.
Nice.
And for all non-concierge guests on the ship, they actually had the option of, again, having a table service lunch in Tiana's, or going up to Cabanas to get the buffet, or having deck food.
Okay.
But for concierge guests, you actually just have your own private lunch.
And all of those are good options.
Like, all of those are good options. And the only difference between the concierge lunch and the non-concierge table service, they have the exact same menu.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is alcoholic beverages are included with concierge. So we were able to get a cocktail, a glass of wine. My dad actually just got, like, I think a double of Tito's just neat.
Oh, there you
just
go.
To kind of have while we were just sitting there. And we were just able to get that. And that's one of those things that's included, because one of the benefits of concierge is in the lounge from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. It's what they call happy hour. And they pretty much have an open bar. They have fantastic bartenders up there that can pretty much make you any cocktail you desire. And I was pleasantly surprised up there to even see that they had some more premium spirits and things like that up there. I was kind of shocked to see Woodford, because I didn't see Woodford on the Fantasy when I was there.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it could have been because of the significantly limited space that they had on the Fantasy, because the Fantasy's concierge lounge was very small in comparison to the Wonders.
Really?
The Dream and the Fantasy, prior to the Dream's dry dock, actually had like the smallest lounge.
Fascinating.
Out of the ships.
That's so weird to me. You would think
you look at it, and when you're in there, you can kind of tell that it might have seemed like an afterthought.
Which is so weird to me, because you would think it'd be the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in my logic, I would think they would want more, not less, as they're building bigger ships.
They adjusted it on the Wish, because the Wish class ships, from what I've seen, have a massive concierge lounge.
Okay.
That spans 2 decks, and I was shocked to see how large it was.
Okay. So you enjoyed lunch. Then did you get to see your room?
Yes. Immediately after, I actually got to see the room, and I told my family.
Was it like a 1 p.m. thing, kind of a?
No, actually, concierge staterooms are guaranteed to be ready at, I think, noon or 12:30.
So they're first. Okay, That's cool.
And it was actually nice, because in comparison to, let's say, on the Fantasy, where the Fantasy actually has their concierge guest rooms in one area of the ship to where it's only concierge. The Wonder, all of the concierge staterooms are on deck 8, but they're spanning the entire deck. And not all of deck 8 is concierge.
You answered my question.
So they had the partitions put up in place at each elevator bank, and a stateroom host would be there, and they would ask, oh, what room number are you? So we gave them the room number, and they know what the concierge staterooms are. And they would say, oh, yes, you can come through.
That's cool. Okay.
So we did that. I walked in there. Our stateroom number was 8534. And I had no words when I walked in there. I was so taken aback at how beautiful the stateroom was. I'm a huge planner, so whenever I book something, I go to YouTube and I try to get a room tour.
Which is literally why you'd be the best travel agent. I've said this multiple times,
and I went in there and I screamed, actually. So I'm pretty sure the people on deck 9 that were up there were probably like, what's going on? Who's dying? But I screamed. It was beautiful. It was beyond what I ever could have envisioned it being. I walked into the first bathroom that we had outside of the common area. Floor to ceiling white marble. Beautiful gold accents for the faucets and everything like that in there, in the shower, everything. The shower was this beautiful rainfall shower head that it took up the surface area of the ceiling for the shower. It was massive.
Really? Wow.
I have never used a shower and felt that content and that at peace. It was like,
that's cool.
The greatest experience of my whole life. That is
very cool.
But it had this beautiful living area that had a couch up against the wall, a plethora of storage, which
the couch pulled out to be a bed, right?
Yes.
And that was that your bed?
It was my bed.
Okay.
And it was very comfortable.
Good.
I was pleasantly surprised, because versus the couch bed on the Fantasy, it was miles better.
Okay. Interesting.
But I absolutely just loved how much space there was. Even with the bed pulled out, there was so much space to still navigate the room with the dining table and everything like that.
That's great.
It was fantastic. An absolute plethora of storage, which was perfect for us because it was a 7-night sailing and we had a lot of bulkier clothes given that we were going up to Alaska. So we had to pack with layers.
It's not warm there in the summer? Spring?
I mean, some people later on an adventure at Ketchikan actually got upset that it was raining. And to that, I just rolled my eyes and was just looking at them like, do you know where you're going?
I mean, you saw our pictures from the year before. You knew what you're getting into.
Exactly. It's like going to Seattle and getting upset that it rains.
Uh-huh. And I think it adds to magic. Like, that's the Alaska experience.
Exactly. But besides the point, so we walked in there. This stateroom actually had a wet bar, so it had a sink and everything like that. So we could go ahead and have anything that we wanted, stocked with glasses for water, sodas, everything like that. Another benefit of staying concierge is that you can email concierge and asking for preference of what you would like your stateroom refrigerator filled with, because they will fill it with complimentary canned sodas and everything like that.
Cool.
And a great example is they have the soda fountain.
Now, does that include alcohol, or does it have to be sodas and milk or whatever?
It is sodas and milk. So what I did find out is that on the Wish class ships, for category 1 staterooms and up, they do provide complimentary beer and wine.
Okay.
But that's going to be for like those higher end royal suites.
Sure.
And on the Wonder, I think that's provided for the Walt and Roy royal suites.
I mean, that makes sense.
But it was just amazing having that space in there, and concierge stocked it up with Evian water and everything like that. Because my mom she doesn't like Dasani, so she was really happy to get the Evian water stocked in the room.
Which I think a pro tip for every cruise is stay hydrated. Like, you're surrounded by water, and it's amazing how many people I've seen get dehydrated on a cruise.
Oh no, I'm one of those people.
Oh, okay. Well, see,
so I can attest to this.
And I'm constantly reminding Katie to drink water.
Remember to drink your water. Just remember to drink your water, because it's so easy to forget because of how much fun you're having.
And you're surrounded by it, so you're like,
you're not thinking,
I don't need more water.
You're really not thinking of it. But that was one of my top tips, especially because from the fantasy, after I fell asleep on Lookout Key for 2 hours and got sunburnt, I woke up the following morning feeling awful because I was so dehydrated. So always remember to drink your water.
It's
pro tip.
Goes back to my old camp counselor days. Like, when a kid would be sick, I'd be like, did you drink water? No. Go drink water. Yeah. Anyway, so talk about the bedroom, the master bedroom.
The master bedroom, my parents were taken aback at how beautiful it was. And that's saying a lot, because my parents do not get easily stunned or shocked by anything.
They have high standards, I think. Like,
they do.
Yeah, they know what they like, and they have the expectations that match that. And they're like, for whatever we're paying, this is what we expect.
They loved it. The bed specifically, my mom was raving about how comfy and plush the bed was.
Which is a huge win.
Slept so good.
That's good.
And it was great. It was actually really nice too, because in the category 2B 1-bedroom suites, they sleep up to 5 guests, but the Murphy pull-down bed, oddly enough, is in the area where the master bedroom is.
Huh.
And in the category 2As, it's not. So because we were in a category 2A, the Murphy pull-down bed was in the common area.
Got it.
And instead, in the master, was this actual nice plush bench that my mom used for getting ready every day. So it was really nice. She loved having that.
Nice.
They also had a walk-in closet, which was really weird to think that a cruise ship, especially at this age, would have something like that.
That's kind of
really wouldn't have expected that.
Okay.
And that's something that's in all of them. Like, all the 1-bedroom suites have that, regardless if they're a 2B or a 2A.
Good for Disney.
So it's like, Disney, good job for planning ahead. You knew people would love that and eat it up, and we did.
Okay.
But it was that beautiful walk-in closet, a nice little vanity if you're getting ready in the morning. And then the master bath was stunning. Again, floor to ceiling marble. This beautiful, large soaking tub that actually had a shower head attachment. So you could take a bath in there, and then just to rinse off, you actually had the shower head attachment.
Was there a shower in there also, or was it just...
There was.
So you could do shower or bath in the master bath, and then the other one, just a shower? Okay, got it.
But it was perfect. Nice double vanity, which is really, really good, because I'm thinking if you're having a suite like that, you should have a double vanity. I've seen some cruise lines that don't have double vanities in their suites, and my mentality is, why?
Yeah.
But it was nice, and it was spacious, which was the good part. Like, both my parents were able to be in the restroom at the same time and still have enough space to get ready individually. Which
is a gift. Like, that's especially for special dinners or whatever. Like, it's great all the time, but when you have, I don't know, the dress up night or whatever, the formal night.
Well, it was perfect for us because a great example on embarkation day, we did Primo Notte at Palo, and Primo Notte was at 6:45. We sailed away at 4.
So do you just not sleep on these cruises? Is that like what happens, or?
Oh no, I did. I actually
I feel like you're up late, and then like you're up before the sun rises.
I got good night's sleep on one night, but I'm going to tell that story later on because that was an oopsies that I did that I didn't know I shouldn't have done.
Okay.
Which caused me to get one of the best sleeps of my entire life.
Well, there you go. Oh, I know what this is. So let's talk about your room's amazing. The deck was stunning and very long. Let's talk about the food on the ship.
Food, honestly, it was great. The only restaurant I really have any notes about in regards to it not being the best was Animator's Palette.
Really?
And this was only night 1 of Animator's Palette, because the second night we were at Animator's Palette, completely different menu. All the food was
so it was a menu issue, you think?
It's a consistent menu issue, and what kind of bugs me about it is that Disney Cruise Line knows about this, because this is the same feedback that they get from all 4 ships.
All right, so what is this? I want to hear what happened.
Disney, and I'm going to preface this. I love you. I love the food that you make. For the love of all that is good, why do the pork chops keep coming out drier than the Sahara Desert?
And I would add to that, because Carthay makes some of the most amazing pork chops
and it's
anywhere.
A simple fix. If they brined the pork chops,
there you go.
It would be good. And
you can do that.
I don't work in the galley, so I am not qualified to actually speak on what the issue is.
But the pork chops don't work.
The pork chops didn't work. A lot of the food there for the night 1 for Animator's Palette, it was dry and it lacked flavor and everything like that. No complaints about the food being hot, though. So the food did come out in a timely manner.
So it sounds like they're just rushing or something.
I think that's what it is, but I also think that maybe because they are prepping for X amount of dishes ahead of time, so maybe they're just automatically preparing. Versus in a traditional restaurant, a lot of the time, once a ticket comes in, you're going to be making it fresh. And I know with cruise ship, with space constraints, can't necessarily work like that. They don't have the liberty.
So this is the day you boarded?
This was Animator's Palette was actually on night 4.
Oh, it was the first Animator's Palette, but it was okay. So never mind. I was trying to think of logic, but that's not going to work. Okay. So that one was a miss, but you liked it the second time you went.
The second time we went, it was great.
And what'd you have then?
I'm going to have to go through my camera roll because I cannot recall what I had.
That is totally fine. What night was the second night that you went on it?
It was actually our final night.
Okay. So is that night 6?
Night 7.
7. Okay.
It was on night 7. It was... trying to go through and see what I had.
And did you have a certain time that you were dining, early or late? Or
we had late dining every time.
Okay.
Because as much as I love Disney and I am a Disney adult, I do not want to be around screaming children.
Okay. So you try to avoid the...
I avoid the early dining time like the plague. I don't personally prefer to eat at 8:15, but on a cruise I will.
But it makes it work. Okay.
And one of the benefits, actually, now that I mentioned this, one of the benefits of Concierge in a suite, we were actually able to get our dinner brought up to our room.
That'd be nice.
And served to us from the main dining room.
That'd be nice. Although you wouldn't get the Animator's Palette experience that way, but
it was wonderful. We decided to do this on one of our nights at Triton's because Triton's isn't a restaurant that has a show or anything like that going with it. So we did that. So we got our food brought up to our stateroom from the main dining room. And it was just so nice being able to enjoy our dinner without dealing with the hustle and bustle of being in the dining room.
And you loved it?
We loved it. I missed our servers because our servers were phenomenal.
Do they follow you on Disney Cruise Lines?
They do. Yeah, they follow you everywhere. And it was great because they really got to know us. They were really just asking us any questions. They were playing mind games with us because they had the crayons that they brought out. So playing different games to where, okay, you have 6 crayons set up. You have to move only 2 crayons in order to make a shape or whatnot.
Oh, man.
It was so mind-boggling. It was bugging us all the time because we were trying to think about it. And the answer was right in front of us, but it wasn't something that you would be inherently thinking of.
It's always the simple thing that afterwards you're like,
it's always the simplest thing. And I'm just looking around and I'm just like, am I really this stupid? No, I'm not.
No, you're not. You're just overthinking it.
Exactly.
So what'd you have the second night at Animators?
I'm still trying to go
as I took you off of your track.
Okay. Oh, I remember this. I had the schnitzel. I had a delicious pork schnitzel, and I also had the pasta percettes because they had them again. So good. They were so good.
Home runs.
The schnitzel, I was in love because I love schnitzel. it was a chicken schnitzel.
I like it when it's well done. Like when it's done well.
So good. It was so flavorful, nice and crispy, and still tender. It was amazing. And I was just so surprised because I'm just like, if you can execute this correct, how can you not execute the pork chop?
That's the harder one.
But again,
I feel like. Okay.
Again, I don't know how the galley runs, because I know the galley on a cruise ship runs drastically different than what a kitchen would in a restaurant. So sure. I know that there's a bunch of different moving parts and everything like that. So neither here nor there, but those are just my comments in regards to the food. But other than that, food on board was phenomenal.
Where else did you eat?
We ate in all 3 dining rooms, but then we also ate at Palo.
And how did that compare?
I get why people rave about Palo brunch now. I understand why it has the cult following.
Okay.
I have no words. It was beyond what I could have imagined. It was so good. So
do you think it would turn me into, like, I'm a coffee in the morning kind of guy. Would it turn me into a brunch lover?
Yes. Because it's not when you're thinking brunch, you're thinking typical brunch foods. It's typical brunch foods with an Italian twist.
Okay.
You can get chicken parm.
Huh. Okay.
And it's not like a large portion.
But it's
like you could get a bunch of different things. And the great thing about it, it's $50 per person.
Mm-hmm.
It's all you can eat, but it's not a buffet.
Because they're bringing it to you.
They're bringing it to you.
Okay.
So you order what you want. And if you want a second round, go ahead and get it. You want a third round, go ahead and get it.
Nice.
It's amazing.
So plan on that for breakfast and lunch, basically, you're saying?
We definitely did, because our Palo brunch was at 11. It was at 12:30. So I just had a light snack.
That's a good way to do it.
I had a light snack in the morning, and then I just avoided eating for the rest of the day. So when I went to Palo, I could gorge myself, and I did. And it was well worth it.
Perfect. Good to know. Did you eat there for dinner too?
Yes. It was actually funny how we did it, because we did Palo 3 days in a row on accident, because we did Prima Notte, which is only offered on embarkation day, and it's a tasting.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That they do. It's phenomenal. The wines, and they pair it with the small bites that they have there. Absolutely amazing.
Cool. And you felt full afterwards?
It's actually not made to make you feel full. You're actually meant to go to your rotational dining afterwards.
Oh, okay.
So that's how they have it.
So it's a supplemental thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it.
But it's phenomenal, though.
Great.
They actually gave us a little pin from it, too.
Oh, that's fun.
So cute. I love it. And I'm not a pin person. I don't get
But it's a memory.
No, but this pin is adorable. I love it.
You have to send me a picture.
It's so cute.
And then how was dinner?
Dinner, oh my gosh. It was amazing. The sole that they had there, phenomenal. That's what my mom got, but I looked over at her and I'm just like, I'm stealing a bite of that, whether you like it or not.
But that's part of cruising, is what you do. Like, phenomenal. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I could go on for hours as to how amazing Palo was. And our server, her name was Louise. She was an absolute queen. We loved her. She fit in perfectly with us in regards to like sense of humor and everything. She was cracking jokes, like hanging out with us at the table. It was great.
Well, I'm sure your family's the kind of family that they absolutely love to have on, because you appreciate what they're offering.
We do. And that's why we wanted to go there, because we really just wanted to check it out, because we were familiar with Remy on the Fantasy. We weren't able to dine at Palo on the Fantasy, but that's something we really wanted to do. And it was just such a great experience.
So of all of your now, let's actually start with just a Disney Wonder. Of all of the bites you had, so just take one bite of your entire trip, what was that dish or part of a dish that stands out to you from this trip?
The gnocchi that they have at Palo.
Nice.
I still dream of that to this day. It was some of the best gnocchi I've ever had in my entire life.
And this might become a recurring question, so just to preface this for you, how does that gnocchi compare to the best bite that you had on your previous cruise? Like, is it the best bite on the Disney cruise for you right now?
It is.
Okay, that answers my question.
I loved Remy, but I just think Palo just really hit it out of the park.
Okay, next.
And I think it's also because it's different experiences. Remy is very much more upscale, and that's a type of environment that they're going with. And the food was spectacular, phenomenal. I'm also just a sucker for Italian food and gnocchi specifically, so that's why I'm going with that. I just love it's potato. I can't go wrong with potato. And I love potatoes,
and it's connecting at a level that's a great thing. So taking the entire culinary experience you had on the Wonder, and then your last one, how would you rate like first place, second place, and then we'll add third and fourth later? Like, which ship wins your culinary
experience? I would definitely still say the Disney Fantasy.
So Fantasy's in first place.
In regards specifically because we also did dine at Remy so many times. I also just
Remy gives it that step up. Is that what you're saying?
I would say Remy gives it that step up because I also just wasn't a fan of Enchanted Garden at all on the Disney Fantasy, and there were some dishes from Animator's Palette as well on the Fantasy that I didn't
connect as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So Fantasy then Wonder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because even though like there were those dishes on the Fantasy, Remy kind of recovered all that was going on, which is why it pushes it up there.
But that's how the game played. That's great. Yeah. I think this is going to be fun because as you go on more ships, we'll keep ranking them. And I think that could be a fun thing for us. Maybe we'll even put it on the website.
I definitely, once I go on the Wish in November, I think the Wish is just going to conquer all because I've heard so many amazing things about the dining offerings on the Wish versus the 4 classic ships.
It'll be fun to see. Like, I'm very curious. Like, I'm not going to make any predictions. This is perhaps the most fun part. The ports of call.
Oh my God, yes.
And the excursions.
Oh my God, we did so many excursions.
You did.
I was so tired.
You did so many things. In fact, one of the things you did was on one of your first days, and I'm like, oh, I need to do this the next time. Or it went from I've been to Alaska multiple times. I've been in my grandpa's boat that was 24 feet that I crewed as we went all the way up to Alaska. And now I look at that and I'm like, Grandpa, you were crazy. I don't know why you let your grandson go with you on this trip. But you went on I think it was your first excursion, right?
It was our first excursion.
Yeah.
It was the Glacier Explorer.
And the pictures you got from this, I was dying because I would kill to take those pictures. But go ahead, talk about what this excursion was.
So Glacier Explorer is offered on your glacier viewing day. And what this basically does, this gives you an opportunity to go much more up close to the glacier versus what your cruise ship can, because your cruise ship can only sail so far up to Dawes Glacier or whatever glacier you're viewing at within the fjord.
And the Disney Wonder, because it is smaller than a lot of the other cruise ships that are up in Alaska, gets closer than, say, the Majestic Princess. When I went on last year, we were a good half mile further up.
I was surprised at how close that the Wonder got to the glacier just from the ship, and it was like,
it was amazing. Yeah.
Like, okay, damn.
How much was this?
We chose to do the adult only one, so it was 21 and up, and it was $349 per person.
Okay.
Within that price, though, it included the snacks and everything that they had on board, so they had a bunch of different bites to eat.
Was this on a Zodiac or is this
No, this was on like a larger passenger vessel.
Oh, so the passenger vessel comes up and gets you.
Mm-hmm.
You go out on this and you get closer to the.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Think of it as like a traditional like tender boat that they would have tendering people from a port of call.
Okay.
Whatnot. So it was like that. So it was really, really nice.
Oh, that's way more. I was expecting like a little open boat for some reason.
I think there were probably like maybe like, I want to say like 100.
Oh, that's great.
On board.
Oh, so my camera would be totally safe on it.
Yeah, no, you would be.
Like I literally had the thought of like
you felt it rock a little bit, but that's really when we were like trying to haul it going back to the ship because we were the last excursion of the day for there. So after we were over there, we actually had to sail back to the Wonder because the Wonder had left the Endicott. The Wonder was leaving Endicott Arm.
So we had to catch up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. Interesting.
But it was really, really cool just being able to be up that close and explore the glacier. We actually got to see like the glacier calving and everything like that happened. It was so.
And I'm assuming you got
cool.
some rocking with that also.
We did. So every time the ice fell, we could kind of see the waves move and everything like that. So it was really, really cool.
And on the way back, you got, or was it on the way there? You got some amazing pictures of the Wonder.
It was on actually both. So on the way out and on the way there, it was really neat just being able to see the Disney Wonder from that perspective. And you just see this magnificent, beautiful looking ship just floating out there. And the backdrop are these beautiful fjords that have snow on top of them, waterfalls, everything like that. It was beautiful. It
looked like it was from a postcard or something. Like it was gorgeous. And it's one of the reasons that I think Disney Cruise Line stands above is when you see that ship out in the water. That's something that's iconic and memorable, whereas just a white whatever ship or whatever it stands out.
It wouldn't have looked as good if it was the Quantum of the Seas there.
Well, yeah.
Sorry,
I would have been thinking like
again, Royal Caribbean. I have nothing against you, but
I enjoyed Royal Caribbean.
This is just all. This is also just cruise lines in general. You all just have ugly ships. I'm sorry.
I don't think that's the focus anymore.
No, and exactly. And again, it's not to bash them or anything like that. That's genuinely just not what the focus is. Disney's focus is making ocean liners and ships that look like ocean liners.
Yep. I mean, other than Cunard. Like Cunard Line still makes Cunard beautiful ships. But
other cruise lines, that isn't what the focus is. And again, I'm not going to shame them for that because they know what their demographic is. They're going after what they're going after. And all props to them because they still have magnificent interiors with wonderful amenities and everything like that.
I mean, it's really cool walking through a park or Central Park in the middle of
they're not focusing on the aesthetics of what the ship looks like on the outside. They would rather focus on what it looks like on the inside. And that's understandable.
Yeah. No, and like, and to give Royal a hat tip is like one of the coolest things I think of any of the cruises I've been on is hearing a guy play a kind of honky tonk piano, whatever, in an elevator and singing and playing along. Like it was just a ridiculous, weird entertainment thing.
Every different cruise line goes after different things. Disney has more of that classic appeal to it, which is why their ships look the way they do.
Exactly. So you got to see the glacier first. Amazing.
Phenomenal. I would say, pro tip, if you were going to Alaska and you were on the fence about booking this excursion, I actually had multiple people reach out to me on Instagram asking if it was worth it. If it is your first trip out there and if it could potentially be your only trip up there, I know it's a steep price point. Do it. Because every day could be different. The Wonder was able to get up so close just because that's how we were able to that day. There wasn't as much ice in the water. It varies on a day-to-day basis based off of the glacial calving.
Which is one of the reasons we didn't get as close when we went.
And I've even heard from other places too, for example, Royal Caribbean, where they actually do the Glacier Explorer on your day in Juneau because the ship can't sail up there itself.
Yeah. And you have to take the...
And you have to do the tender boat. So if it is really your only opportunity to do it, I would highly recommend doing it.
Especially soon because it's becoming harder and harder to see these things too. Like... that one, Mendenhall, Tracy Arm, all were ones I saw as a kid. And it shocked me how 25 whatever years later, how much these have receded through the last couple of decades, especially Mendenhall. Like Mendenhall used to come all the way down to the lake, filled, like you could see, like it looked like it was coming right at you. And I saw a picture of it from this week and I was shocked at how far back it had gone. And so this really is one of those things that, take the opportunity while you can, and who knows what the future is going to bring. But the current trend is they're getting smaller.
They are. And our guides that were on there, the naturalists, were even explaining you could look at the fjord and see how far it has receded and everything like that. And it was just shocking to see how far that specifically Dawes Glacier has receded from where we were at and everything. So
and that's just in my lifetime even. Like that blows my mind.
It's insane. And again, if you are on the fence of doing it and you're really not sure, just keep it. You will thank me later because it is going to be an experience that you will never forget, being able to be that close to it and being able to just sail in the water. And not only that, you're just observing the nature around you because you're this small little speck in this magnificent, untouched fjord. And it's just absolutely amazing.
It's I can't say enough about that. So your next stop was Skagway, if I recall.
Yes.
And you did 2 excursions there. Is that correct?
We did because we were insane.
I honestly think it was a good call. I wouldn't have probably done the second one, but I'm also happy that you did.
It was a good call, but at the same time, I was dead tired after it. I was ready to go take a nap. But for our first excursion, we did the White Pass Scenic Railway. That was fantastic.
Which is one of my favorite things to do in Alaska. Like, gorgeous.
It was actually funny, though, because I had booked it, and I actually had a friend of mine message me on Instagram saying, "Oh, which one are you doing?" And I was confused. Like, there's one train.
But there's the one with the bus and the lunch and all that stuff, too, right?
Well, there was that, but then he mentioned, he's like, "Did you look into the luxury one?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Is that every one, though?
Every train?
Yeah.
I think every train has a specific.
Oh, I thought only some of them offered it.
I think from what I was told, I think it's every train has that, but it's just the caboose.
Okay, got it.
But I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was explaining what the luxury one included. And of course, because it's more of a luxury excursion, it has a higher price point. But for my family, we weighed the pros and cons of it, and we decided to switch it to that one, especially because they only had 4 seats left on it, and we're a party of 3.
Perfect.
So we just snagged it, and it was great. have to say,
was it an actual caboose?
It was, yeah, it was that. It was the caboose of the train. It was amazing because we had only, I think, 13 guests.
Oh, I'm doing this next time.
In the cabin. It was a steep price increase because I want to say it
That's
was
fine.
like a little over double what the original cost was.
Mm-hmm. But it's
But
a
we
reasonable
also-
price for the train anyway. Like,
I also saw, because we were there, and especially because I know my mom gets claustrophobic and I do as well, especially when there's like heavy crowding. I saw how many people were packed in those other train cars that they had there, and we would have been incredibly uncomfortable the whole time. We would not have been able to enjoy the experience the way we wanted to.
Yep.
And on top of that, in the regular train, from what I was told, you have a guide that's just for the entirety of it.
if it works.
Yeah, if it works.
Because it's just on the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We had a guide the entire time for ours, like a private guide,
That was pointing things out or whatever.
who was also a bartender.
Oh.
And making drinks and whatnot.
I'm
Because that was included in the cost. And you also had snacks and everything like that. And it wasn't just like...
See, here's what I'm thinking.
There were deviled...
Daps trip to Alaska in a couple of years.
Yes.
Because this... Like, I was on the fence on this, but now I'm like, oh, we could do the train and the caboose. And
it was deviled. Yeah. It was like deviled eggs, like an actual charcuterie board.
And was it like how long was it?
It was still like the entire duration of the train.
Is that 3 hours?
Yeah, it was like 3
hours. Yeah, I was like
4 hours.
Okay.
And on top of that, we got these plush leather chairs to actually sit in, like these comfy leather chairs that swiveled around.
So it was like the Lily Bell at Disneyland.
Pretty much.
That's awesome. And the views
were perfect because you were unobstructed. You were on the caboose, so you could go out to that little platform that they had outside,
which is where I spent the entire trip when we went last year.
And you can go ahead and just look at nature surrounding you.
I love that.
It was amazing. And on top of that, just because we had our own private guide, he was cracking jokes with us the entire time. It was definitely more of a personalized experience versus like a general nature tour or anything like that you could get going anywhere.
That is very cool.
It was amazing. And we were even talking about it afterwards. We're just like, this was well worth finding, even though we found out about it the day before. It was well worth it to go ahead and do that because it was just such a great experience.
One quick detailed question. Did you book that through Disney?
Yes.
Okay.
We booked all of our excursions through Disney Cruise Line. And I will have to admit, I'm a little bit of a weenie when it comes to excursions. I will only book my excursions through the cruise line because I live in fear of getting left behind. Not just general FOMO. I mean, literally, the ship will leave without me. So I will book all of my excursions.
Then it won't.
Especially if it's later on. Because say, hypothetically, you're on an excursion that's chartered through Disney and the ship has to leave port. They will still pay for your expenses to meet you at the next port.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think that's a pro tip for cruise. Like, I've cruised with other people that cruise a lot. And they're like, oh, no, you can do other companies. I'm like, yeah, if you have a buffer.
And personally, for me, especially in Skagway, we did not really have a buffer. And most of our ports of call, we didn't have a buffer. Maybe if you're booking an early excursion when you get in a port, yeah, understandable. If you're booking with one where you're supposed to maybe get back to your meeting place an hour before the all aboard time, that's too close. Because something could go wrong. Something as simple as a car accident or like a traffic jam.
And I will tell you, I love to watch what they call them, port runners.
That was so funny.
I love, like, Katie and I will go up on the top deck, and if there's a place to watch, we will be watching port runners if we can when the ship is about to leave. And you never want to be one of those.
We actually watched port runners in Juneau because they were
sending the video.
They were taking away the gangway from deck one midship, so the deck one aft one was still there.
Yeah.
And it was just funny watching these people just run down the port.
The one that baffles me is the people that don't run and they just walk and they're like, oh, it'll be there.
And I'm just like, that gangway could lift up right now and they won't care.
Yeah, I think we have the same anxiety.
You should have been on board.
Yeah.
They tell you.
Mm-hmm. No, there's no shortage of warnings for this. So you did the train. I think it's one of the best experiences in Alaska, right up there with glaciers. And you also did was it the afternoon, I'm assuming?
Yes, in the afternoon, we did the Glacier Explorer by helicopter.
Which terrified me. I will admit.
I thought it would terrify me. I was having the time.
You had a blast. It did give me second thought of like, maybe I need to try this.
It was actually really funny though, because I was talking with one of the concierge hosts about it. And he even mentioned to me, he said how I think a year ago he had done that exact excursion. And he said it's one of the top memories of his entire life.
Wow.
So that solidified it with me where, I'm going to do this. It's going to be amazing. It was I can't even have words describe how beautiful it was and how spectacular it was to be in a helicopter. And we traveled 20 minutes to Mead Glacier and 20 minutes back to just be up there observing all this nature, seeing everything from high up above, just this untouched land, and seeing what it was actually like in person versus a postcard or a picture online. It was stunning.
There's no picture that ever captures the beauty of Alaska in a way that seeing it right in front of you will ever, there's no comparison. Like, as you go to a museum or whatever, like, there's just nothing that gets close enough to show off how beautiful Alaska is. How was takeoff and landing?
Honestly, really smooth.
But it's pretty fast, isn't it?
It was.
Or steep, I guess is a better word.
It was pretty steep, especially when we were going back to Skagway after we were walking on the Mead Glacier. And when they came in, because I was
they dive in, don't they?
They pretty much dove in to where we were over there where the cruise ships are, and then we took a hard left all the way down and kind of did like a corkscrew going all the way down. It was still really cool. I loved it.
Maybe it'll happen sometime.
My mom was in the back fearing for her life the entire time. Yeah, meanwhile, my dad and I were just like, do it again, do it again.
I'd probably be more like your mom. Talk about what it was like being on the glacier.
Walking on the glacier was actually so weird because they actually gave us like special gear and like shoes and everything like that.
With the spikes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They're like big cleats.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And they're like metal things that you strap on, right? Okay, yeah.
So we had those on and we were walking on the glacier. It was just so surreal to feel like, oh, I'm like actually walking on this ice. And they were explaining how the glaciers are formed and everything like that. And I didn't know this, but about 1 foot of glacier ice is about 100 feet of compacted snow.
Wow.
And looking at how large these glaciers are, like, this is thousands upon thousands of feet of snow over how many years?
Yeah, I was thinking, like, I remember
that have compacted here over time to just form these beautiful, pretty much like works of art is what it was like. It was really neat too, because they were talking about the water flow, because there were little like rivers flowing through the ice and whatnot. And they're like, oh, if you want to go ahead and have a sip of water, like, go for it. And they even explained us too, because a lot of people are like on edge about it, like, is that sanitary? And they're like, we actually, every time we're up here, like, we test the water daily to see for what everything is like in there, to see if it's okay. And they did, and they're just like, yeah, we tested it already today, it's good. So I was feeling bold, and I actually just got down on my stomach and put my face into the river, because our guide was there. She's like, you can do that and have a glacial facial.
It's a great picture.
So I went down like into the river, like pretty much almost submerged my head underwater and just had some of the water. It was the most crisp, delicious water I've ever had in my entire life. And I know water doesn't have flavor, but this water,
we'll get that picture on the site,
just tasted
I think we need to do that. Very cool. So then you fly back, you get back on the ship. I actually love, I don't know what time of day you left, but the cruise, or the cruise out of Skagways are heading south. I think those 4 or 5 hours are some of the most beautiful in all of Alaska.
It was really pretty. We actually left pretty late. Our port time was 7:15 a.m. to 8 p.m.
So a couple hours before. Okay, yeah.
So we were there like a few hours before
then.
Like sunset and everything like that, but just being able to see the sunset when you're sailing down.
And don't you feel from Skagway, beautiful. Was Juneau your next stop?
Yes.
Okay, so as you're going from Skagway to Juneau, don't you also feel that it's so isolated, and you're on this big ship, big being relative to whatever it is, and you just look as far as you can see, and you see these massive mountains and these islands, and I don't know if you passed the lighthouse. It's a couple hours out, but like, isn't it such a perspective inducing thing when you realize how small you are and how big everything is around you?
It really was. It was really weird just being on like the tender boat for the Glacier Explorer specifically, and seeing how steep these mountains were, because again, like, I live in Southern California. I'm used to mountain ranges. Like, I live in the Inland Empire. Yeah. So I'm surrounded by mountain ranges. I've never seen anything like that before in my entire life, though, because we got very close to some of the waterfalls that were cascading down the mountain, and you're just like, oh, that is steep. And it doesn't look like that originally until you get up close, and then you're looking up at the treetops and you see how the treetops are terraced, like this beautiful canopy going up the side. And it's just insane to just see how large and how the glaciers carved out these mountain ranges over time.
Yeah. It's stunning. Like it's one of the most beautiful places, I think. And just the power of nature, I think, that's shown. So the next stop was Juneau. What'd you do there?
We did ziplining.
Very fun.
That was really fun. Out of all the excursions we took,
is that the one where you take the gondola up the side of the hill?
No, we did do that.
But isn't that a way to zipline or something?
I truthfully
don't
know.
Who knows? That's another podcast.
I know up there, it's like that's the like trail up to Mount Roberts, and I think they have hiking and ziplining up there, but that isn't what we booked. We booked the Alpine Zipline Adventure.
Okay.
And it was really fun. We did enjoy it. I absolutely loved it and everything like that. Out of all the excursions that we took, it was hard to rank all of them because all of them were fun. This one was on the bottom.
To me, it's not as uniquely Alaska. Like, it's pretty, but it's not.
It wasn't. And we were looking at a lot of the excursions.
Do you also feel like you could have done it in Washington or Oregon?
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
I don't feel like that because as much as I could have done it in Washington and Oregon, I feel like I still wouldn't have gotten that exact same experience in regards to being out there in the nature and seeing those mountaintops with the snow and everything like that.
Okay, I'll give you that.
As I would have in the other Pacific Northwest states.
Sure.
But we had a lot of fun there. It was really great. It was an earlier excursion too. So when we got back into port, we had time to explore a little bit. My family decided to go back to the ship because my mom was just tired and she just wanted to relax a little bit. So I walked around downtown Juneau. Thought it was a really cute town.
It is, isn't it?
Like that. I love it. I wish I had more time to explore it because, and let me backtrack because I just realized this. After we got back, we actually did the Skytram up to Mount Roberts.
Yes.
And we went up there. We just thought it was like, oh, check it out. It was really cool just taking this little Skytram up there. We got food at a restaurant up there. Awful. Don't go there. Just do yourself a favor. Just don't go to that restaurant.
Just eat on the ship.
We were debating doing that. We're like, no, let's go up there. It seems fun. And then we really wish, like, truth be told, we got fish and chips. I would have preferred a hot dog on the ship versus those fish and chips that I had because they were just not great.
Logistical question. Where does Disney Cruise Line dock in Juneau? Is it right there underneath that, or is it?
No. So that's the one part where they don't get priority docking in. We were about 1 mile away from downtown, so they actually had a complimentary shuttle.
So is it further out, like as you're coming into the? Okay, got it.
So we are docked further out versus where a lot of the other ships are.
Is it that first terminal or first?
I think it's more of like their industrial terminal.
Yeah, I know where that is. Okay, yeah.
So that's where we were at because I saw Holland America, Carnival, and Royal had the preferential docks downtown.
And Princess was right downtown too when we were there.
Yeah.
Like we were right in that touristy, like I think we were the first stop. Like we were the closest ship to downtown. Yeah. It was great.
We were not. So it was still nice though, because it wasn't that far of a drive.
It's and again, Alaska. What are you going to complain?
Well, because I saw at some other places where some other cruise lines charge for that shuttle that'll take them to and from. Disney doesn't.
And then you're just out of luck, basically. Okay.
Yeah, Disney doesn't charge for the shuttle or whatnot. They say that they have the complimentary shuttle service set up to bring you to it.
I mean, good for Disney. Yeah.
So,
okay.
That was really nice. But after we did that, my parents went back to the ship and I explored downtown a little bit. I thought it was really cute. Really nice over there. I went to a coffee shop downtown and I got a cold brew because it was like a cherry cream cold brew. One of the most foul beverages I've ever had in my entire life. I was so upset by it. And I was like looking on my phone, like trying to look at small, cute independent shops. And I did find one.
You're good at finding
outside
these things too.
I did find one and it was outside and it was actually right where like the central downtown area was, so very tourist heavy, but it was this cute little kiosk. The baristas there were so fun. They had all these fun different flavors. And I got an iced latte instead because I just wasn't feeling cold brew after having that abysmal tasting cold brew. It was divine.
Oh, good.
It was delicious. I loved it.
Do you remember the name of the place?
I don't.
That's too bad. If you remember, we'll put it in the chat, in the comments, or in the
show notes.
Show notes. Thank you. Because I think that would be fun for people that go up there to be able to find it.
But that was a lot of fun. But that pretty much concluded our day in Juneau because after that, I went back on the ship and then we had our dinner and everything like that. I think that night we saw Frozen.
How was that?
That was amazing.
We'll get back to entertainment.
I loved it. I love seeing Frozen.
Cool. So your next stop was Ketchikan? I love Ketchikan.
Ketchikan, my beloved. I love you so much. I want to visit you again.
Like Ketchikan and Skagway are two of my favorite places on the planet.
Ketchikan was just
amazing. Skagway gets the bonus of having a train. Like if Ketchikan had a train,
I loved
I'd be in
Ketchikan
trouble
because of Creek Street. Creek Street was just
beautiful.
amazing to walk through.
Was it raining when you were there?
Yes.
Isn't that magical?
It was
Yes.
It was absolutely amazing. I loved it. But our port adventure in Ketchikan was the most adventurous thing. It was called the Alaska Boatman. And it's pretty much like you're on this 12-foot Zodiac boat. Dressed in this rain gear. Like we all looked like models for Helly Hansen by the time we were done.
Was it survival gear that they're putting you in basically?
Pretty much.
Okay.
It was great because you're on this little 12-foot Zodiac. They put the life vest on you after you get all your Helly Hansen rain gear on. And then you have your guide that's on a Zodiac in front of you. And you're basically just driving around the Pacific Ocean.
Wait, are you driving it or somebody's driving it for you?
No, you're driving it. Like my dad was driving our boat.
Oh, that makes it so much. I did not realize that. Oh, yeah. I want to do this.
Your guide is on a boat and you're responsible for driving the boat and following your guide.
Oh, that's cool.
And we got to go to all these different islands around the different inlets and everything like that. We got to see like there was a humpback whale that was breaching like maybe 50 feet away from us.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was insane. We got to see like bears or a bear up in a tree.
Hey, you know what? That counts.
So we got to see that. We saw dolphins, all this nature, bald eagles. We got to see where the bald eagles' nests are and everything like that. And we were going all around the area over there. And it was wet and rainy and miserable weather.
Who cares? That's
and
awesome.
It was still the greatest thing I've ever done.
Oh,
we had so much fun.
That sounds like a blast.
The only thing with the tour, though, is because it's very dependent on weather. If the weather's too rainy, because that also means the swells will be too high.
Yeah, you can't do it.
They can't do it.
That totally makes sense.
And it was funny because...
And you wouldn't want to at that point.
I was going to circle back to something that happened on this excursion. So we were here doing this excursion, and we were the second excursion done for the day. We were raving about how much fun we had, and our tour guide was saying how the party before us was just pretty much miserable.
So was it just the three of you on this Zodiac?
Yes, on our Zodiac, yes. There were three other boats with us.
Okay, so it's like a group of boats that go... Okay, cool.
But the group that our guide had before us, like in the earlier morning, when the weather was better too, still,
of course,
they were all complaining about how cold and rainy it was up there. And we all just looked at our guide. We're like, are you serious? Like, did they know where they're at?
Exactly. Did you not look at the weather report before you left?
Not only that, you don't even need to look at a weather report.
It's just going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we were all looking at her and we were just joking with her, like, what's wrong with them? And she was so appreciative of just about how kind we were and how much fun we were having. Because she's like, the group before was really rough. Like they were kind of mean because they just weren't in a good mood because it was rainy. And we're just like, how could you not be in a good mood when you're just out here? It's like your own little adventure. It was so much fun. My dad was like speeding up, going over the swells. So the boat was like going up in the air. And we were like, this is amazing.
Oh, that sounds like a blast.
So fun.
So how many hours did that last?
Like 4 hours.
And you still had time to go check out Creek Street?
Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
We also went to so we got lunch in town too at the Alaska Fish House.
Nice.
Oh my God, it was so good.
I went there as a kid.
So good.
So good.
We were asking because my mom went to one of the jewelry stores they had in town, which we found out was the only jewelry store that's open year round because it's owned and operated by people up there. It's not one of those like Diamonds and International ones.
Interesting. Okay.
So we were in there and we were just asking them because both the people in the shop were from there and they'd lived up there. We were like, where should we go to get lunch? And they were like, go to Alaska Fish House. Like we enjoy going there and we're locals. Like we live here.
This says a lot.
Go there. It's good. So we're just like, okay, that says a lot. The fish and chips were so good. The service was amazing. Everybody there was just so kind and friendly.
That's cool.
And I know one of the things that a lot of people do in Ketchikan is they go to the lumberjack show and everything like that.
Which is a blast.
I did not want to do that because I'm just like, well, if I want to go to a lumberjack show, I'll go to Big Bear.
It'll be different, but yes.
That was just my mentality.
No, it's totally fine.
And I'm just like, I really just want to see what this cute little town has because it was amazing. And then we walked around Creek Street and then checked out everything. We got some artwork over there in town and got a mug. And it was amazing.
I love that you got artwork too. Like that's something I always look for on trips, and I never spend enough time because, as you can see in our studio, I have a small collection, you could say. But I think Alaska artwork is gorgeous as well. Anyway, you also what?
We also there's this little sign at the end of Creek Street. I think it says like "Forget Me Not" over this archway, and I was able to try to get the Wonder framed like behind it in the background for a picture, and
cool.
it just looks so cute.
Oh, that's cool.
It was just so amazing because I'm just like, I will never.
To moving out of town.
I was like, I will never ever get Ketchikan. I will absolutely come up here again when we sail to Alaska, because after it was like day 3 into our cruise, it was literally Glacier Day, and me and my parents looked at each other, we're just like, we're coming back here, we don't care, no questions asked.
And that's, I think, something that Alaska has that I can't even tell you why. It has some magnetism that you're like, oh, I just need more.
I've heard that, and I've heard the same thing from like Norway, going to the Norwegian fjord,
which is funny you say that.
Essentially, I've heard a lot of people say it's essentially the same thing but just European.
That was so we just went to Tokyo for my birthday, and we might talk about that at some point. But the other option is I was looking at Norway cruises, because I was like, that looks like such a gorgeous place. And I have an uncle that lives there, and he's a piano tuner for like the National Symphony or something. But yeah, no big deal. But Norway has always intrigued me. And I think Alaska and Norway, their similarities are probably why they both are a draw to me. So Ketchikan, then you have day at sea, and you're back in Vancouver. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's your ports of calls. Of all of those, I think I know the answer. What was your favorite excursion that you did on this Disney Wonder trip to Alaska?
As much as I want to say in Ketchikan for the boat, it was the helicopter. Like,
that's what I thought you were going to say. Okay.
Oh my god!
If I'd have been wrong on that, I would have been like, oh man.
I can't explain how cool that was and how just insane it was.
And
stunning.
Just thinking back about your trip when you're texting us, that's the one you had the most excitement in your voice for. Like,
I was so
the boat was
excited. Cool. I was so excited to go on it.
That's cool.
It was just so surreal to be able to just sail over there.
Fly.
Well, we sailed up there.
Yes.
And then being able to just sail up there, go ahead and see this nature around us, and then go fly up above and see it from a bird's eye view. It was just wild.
Very cool.
And getting to be able to walk on a glacier and walk around on it and check it out and see all these different things.
I would guess less than 1% of the planet's population has gotten to do that.
It was insane.
Super cool.
I was so excited. It was so exciting. That was so much fun.
So now let's talk about the entertainment and the experiences on the ship. You've already mentioned you saw Frozen. What else did you do while you were on the ship?
Oh, we saw all the shows.
Okay, so talk about all the shows that were on. Let's start with that.
We saw the Golden Mickeys, which was basically their take on like an Oscars award show.
It's the Oscars, right? Yeah.
Okay. It was so funny. Oh, we loved it. We almost walked away with one of the Golden Mickeys that they had in the gift shop because they sell them as like statues.
Cute.
It was so fun. We loved it. It's really cool how they have it set up though, because it's like they have a live feed outside the Walt Disney Theater. And it's like they're actually welcoming guests on the red carpet, and they have a whole camera set up that actually feeds into screens inside the Walt Disney Theater.
Oh, that's a good way to wait.
It is so freaking cool.
Okay.
It is so freaking cool. And then I loved it so much. It was so much fun. We absolutely had a blast. It wasn't like an actual like theater production where it was like emotional or anything like that. It was just a really
good time,
really funny show.
That's great.
It was phenomenal. We loved it. And I'm just like, okay, because I think it's also on the Disney Dream. So when I sail on the Disney Dream, I will be seeing that again. It was just spectacular. The next theatrical performance we had was Frozen, which I loved. Frozen was absolutely spectacular.
Was it similar to what we had at DCA?
I really can't remember.
Okay.
I only saw it like once.
Okay.
But I loved it. It was the exact same show that they have on the Fantasy. I did like it on the Disney Wonder more.
Okay.
I just felt like the cast that they had for a majority of the characters, there was only one character where I felt like his voice range didn't fit with the character that he was trying to
They're pushing
portray
it or whatever.
But the cast on the Wonder was just spectacular. Like they knocked it out of the park. It was amazing. Cool. And then after that, we saw, I think it was Disney Dreams, because I was going to say Believe, but I'm just like, no, Believe is on the Fantasy. We saw Disney Dreams, and it was such a good show. It was the final night too, and that was one of the shows where I was crying like a little weenie at the end of it, because it was just so cute. It was.
Is
so
it that
cute.
like inspirational Disney
It's like that. Like, it's that typical Disney inspiration where it's like the magic is within you, whatnot, and it just gets you being emotional. It was so good.
And it's the end of a week of amazing Disney magic.
That's
so
literally what it was, because this was actually our final night that show
brilliant.
debuted, and I'm just like, are you really doing this to me when I'm about to have to get off this ship tomorrow?
That is
like,
good programming.
It is good programming, because I think there's also, it's just like, again, book a placeholder.
Book another cruise.
Book another one. And you know what, Disney, I have to give you credit where credit's due. While we were literally on that sailing, I was on my phone and we booked another cruise. So I can't blame you.
So did you see any other entertainment or characters, or because you're not a huge characters guy, I don't think. Right?
I am not a characters person.
Yeah.
I saw like some of the lines that they had for some of the characters and whatnot, and there were like a couple characters that I wanted to go visit, but truth be told, I was just a little hungover when I was supposed to see them, so I'm like, I'm not getting up that early to go ahead and meet a character.
Which characters?
Unfortunately, I actually wanted to see like Mirabelle and Bruno.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And they were just meeting early in the morning, and I'm just like, I messed up from the following day.
Did you see them like just walking around or anything?
They kind of had them. It was like when they were going back from their sets, whatnot.
Because I've heard stories of like, oh, I bumped into so and so as I was walking on the deck, like, or whatever.
That's more so for like the larger characters like Goofy, Donald,
Chip and Dale,
Mickey, Minnie, Chip and Dale. Like,
got it.
Think of like the Fab Five characters that they would have.
Got it. Town Square.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
So it's like that. Those are the ones that were more roaming.
Got it. Okay.
But we did meet some characters, specifically ones that are very highly coveted, and people lose their marbles.
Like who?
It was Fisherman Mickey and Sherpa Minnie.
Honestly, if you're gonna only see two, those are the two. Like, to me, that's part of why you go to Alaska on the Disney Wonder.
The queues for these characters were at one point 2 hours long.
How long did you wait?
2 minutes.
You just timed it right, or
concierge? That's one of the benefits, actually. And this is actually, we didn't know about this ahead of time. We just found out the day of. So on Glacier Day, because Glacier Day is the only day on board the ship where they're
actually like,
on Glacier Day, concierge actually gets like a private little viewing of the glacier when the ship is sailing up Endicott Arm.
Because you're up in front.
We're up in front. We're basically where the bridge is.
Yeah.
So we got to go up there, and we kind of got to go through this little, I would say like backstage area, and it had on the wall, it was like all these different awards and things like that the Disney Wonder has earned over time from going to like the different ports of call. Like they had inaugural sailings from like Galveston, San Diego, Seattle, all around the Caribbean.
Well, it just got a conservation award from Port of Vancouver.
Yeah, so it was all those different things. So it was really cool seeing like all those plaques and everything like that on the wall, just seeing like the history of like where the ship has been, because the ship has truly been up, down, all around the world.
Yeah.
And after that, we were just out there on the deck, and I had to use the restroom. So I had to go back up to the deck, use the restroom, then come back in. And then when I was walking back in, Mickey and Minnie were following me.
Oh, that's fun.
So I had no idea. I just turned around and I see them, and I was just like, what? So they were there behind us coming in, and they were going to do like a photo op on the open deck over there, but it started raining.
Oh.
So because it started raining, they had to move them inside to the concierge lounge. And when we were inside the concierge lounge, they offered all the guests staying concierge like an opportunity to get a picture with them. And come to find out, the only guests that can get a picture of both of them together are concierge. Because they meet separately on the open deck.
Right.
One meets on the port side, one meets on the starboard side.
Which makes sense because it gives a chance to, Interesting. So add that to the list of reasons to go concierge.
It is, especially if you're very like character focused, because there were actually quite a few guests that were sailing concierge, whether it was just like them and their spouse, or it was the whole family and everything like that. And that was one of the things that, and why they booked it.
Don't you think when we record the Daps trip to Alaska on the Disney Wonder, because we'll record it on the ship, don't you think the thumbnail for that episode would have to be us with Mickey and Minnie in their winter wear? That's super cool.
But it was just so amazing just getting to do it, because I wasn't expecting that, because again, I'm not a character person.
I didn't actually know that. That's very cool.
I don't really care for character meet and greets, whatnot, but because the line was
pictures of them, but I don't want to meet them.
They were like, yeah, we'll do it. So we went ahead and took a picture with them, and it was great.
That's cute. That's very cute. Did you get to experience any like the atmosphere entertainment or anything like that?
Yes, I did get to see the piano player playing in the atrium multiple times.
Which I think would be a highlight for me.
overheard the piano player playing in Cadillac Lounge.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of fun. And then they just had a bunch of different like entertainment offerings and things like that scattered throughout the entire voyage.
And how would you rate all of these?
Phenomenal.
Beautiful.
Especially, I have to give Disney Cruise Line credit for their adult-only programming, because a lot of the games they had there were just fun. And especially when you're thinking Disney, you're not thinking like actual like fun adult entertainment venues.
Wasn't there like a dating game or something you went and saw?
It's the Newlyweds game. It's
or
called
Newlyweds game. Thank you. Yes.
It is the funniest.
What's it called again?
Match Your Mate.
Match Your Mate. Okay.
It's the funniest thing I've ever witnessed in my entire life. Everybody was in there just like laughing, screaming, having the time of their lives.
Which I would say for any cruise, because there's usually some variation of this on basically every cruise I've ever been on. Go see this. Like if you're going to do one special event throughout the show or throughout the cruise, go see this show, because who was hosting it?
It was just some of the entertainment.
Okay, because a lot of ships, it's the cruise director that will
The cruise director was present for a lot of like the large like deck shows,
but not this one.
Not this one.
Okay, but no, it's if it's like anything else I've been on other cruises, it was probably even funnier because they probably had Disney references and whatnot as well.
No, they did. It was
okay,
really
great.
Funny. It was so funny. I feel
like we need a list for future cruises of things like on Daps Cruise. These are the things we all need to be so funny.
For. And they just had a bunch of fun, different entertainment venues and games like that going on. It was so fun.
Love it. What would you say was your favorite entertainment offering from this cruise?
It was Match Your Mate.
Okay. Over the theatrical productions.
Oh, not over the theatrical productions.
So like, let's take it all. Like what? So Match Your Mate is the.
Oh, it was Golden Mickey's. No,
Golden Mickey's.
It was Golden Mickey's.
Over Dreams.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Golden Mickey's just made me laugh. Like it made me laugh so much.
And it's been around a long time.
Disney Dreams was very emotional. And obviously it's the last day of my sailing. So I'm just like, okay, like I'm crying now that I watched the show and because I have to get off the ship tomorrow.
But Golden Mickey's just makes you happy.
Yeah. The Golden Mickey's is, oh my God.
I love that.
It was so dumb, but in the best way possible. I loved it.
I'm okay. That's classic
great,
Disney, though, isn't it? Like
it was just so funny.
So we've hit a lot of the big things of the cruise. Let's talk about some of the tips and tricks that you learned along the way through this cruise. I can think of one of them that was kind of funny to me, but what were some of the things that you feel like you picked up that would be good tips and tricks for people in the future? And whatnot in the future, whatever you learned from this.
I'm trying to think for tips and tricks in regards to, again, stay hydrated.
Mm-hmm.
This is not really a tip or a trick for a cruise, but this is just something I found out because
I think this is what I was thinking.
I didn't know I was like this sheltered at this point, but I was having some allergy flare-ups while I was on board to where my sinuses were just not my friend. And I went to the gift shop because I'm trying to find allergy medication because they have Dramamine and everything like that there. Mm-hmm. So I saw that they had Benadryl.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that. Keep in mind, and this is very important, I've never taken Benadryl because I've never needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I also, being me, had a few beverages, beveraginos if you may,
mm-hmm.
prior to having this Benadryl. And I saw the max dosage I could have would be 2. So I took 2 things of Benadryl. And then I proceeded to have, at this point, this would have been my 3rd beverage of the evening. I didn't know, first off, Benadryl made you drowsy. So that was a big oops.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm sitting there at dinner. We're in oh my God, yeah, we were in Animator's Palette.
Mm-hmm.
This was our first night at Animator's Palette. And I'm sitting there and I'm so tired and like so loopy. And so out of it, the last time I felt this way was when I was coming out of anesthesia.
Yeah.
After a surgery I had in 2020. But I'm like there looking around in the dining room, just feeling like all loopy and
elephants on parade. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like that. And it was just so funny. I'm just like, I literally had no idea. And I'm even telling my family about this as we're sitting there at dinner. And my parents are looking at me like, are you stupid?
Mhm.
And I'm like, correct, actually, because any person with any brain would have figured, hey, maybe don't combine these two things together. But oops, I did that. So don't make my mistake. Don't take two things of Benadryl and then proceed to have a Cosmopolitan.
Fair.
After you had already consumed two Cosmopolitans.
Equally fair. It was pretty funny being on the other end of the text messages, though.
I do have to say, though, the sleep I got that night, I slept for 11 hours because I went to bed really early. I went to bed at 9:30.
Wow.
And I'm normally up to like 11 or midnight. Yeah. So I went to bed early. I got the best sleep of my entire life because I just knocked out. And then I looked at my clock the next morning and just like, oh, wow. I was out.
So just listening to your story, I feel like there's a couple tips that you've inadvertently given us through today. One, book early and book often, like for excursions.
The moment your excursions open up, because excursions open up based on your Castaway Club status. A great example, I'm Castaway Club Silver. So my excursions would open 90 days out from my sail date. New, I think first-time cruisers, it's 75 days. Castaway Club Gold members, it's 105. Castaway Club Platinum is 120. Pearl is 123. Concierge is 130 days via email to your concierge.
And that's bumping you up to that next level. Yeah. I think that's a very good thing to keep in mind. And that means you research ahead of time so you know what you want to do and also have backups. Like, and I will say, I think you'd probably agree with me, is even if you don't get the excursion you want, each of these destinations, particularly in Alaska, they're beautiful either way. Like, you're going to have a good time, even if you don't do an excursion. If you choose to do the excursion, which I think we would both suggest doing, it just adds an extra level of magic to your trip.
I would say so, because regardless if you go up to Alaska, you can have 0 excursions booked and go into every port blind.
And you can just walk around.
You're going to have
gorgeous,
a phenomenal experience regardless. I do have to say, in like some of the towns, because they're very heavily like tourist heavy, a great example that we found was in Skagway, to where it was like all these jewelry stores like trying to siphon people in.
Skip the jewelry.
But that's any place where that's dependent on tourism for their revenues. You're going to have like that anywhere you go, no matter what country, no matter where you're at, there's going to be things like that. So as long as you ignore that and you get to walk around and explore the town and see what there is there, you can kind of like create your own journey and do anything that you want to do. And Alaska is the perfect place for that, because there's so much for you to do. There's so much to explore and to see that you can go up there probably 3 or 4 times and do something different every time and still have a phenomenal experience.
I've been up there 3 or 4 times, 4 or 5 actually. And I can tell you each one has been a completely different trip than the one before. And part of that has been on different modes of transportation each time, but it's a fantastic place to, go to Ketchikan 4 or 5 times and have a completely different experience. Like, we didn't get into, there's the totem poles outside of Ketchikan that are gorgeous. And
oh my gosh, yes, I love seeing those. We took pictures of them too.
Yeah,
it's just spectacular.
Like, there's so many different things that you can do and approaches you can take for each of these destinations in Alaska that you're just never going to get tired of it. How about some tips for packing for a Disney cruise in Alaska? Because it's a completely different packing setup than if you're going to the Bahamas or something.
Don't be my family and overpack in the first place, but then also go crazy in Whitecaps and Mickey's Mainsail to the point where it's the night before you debark and you're like, where am I going to put all my souvenirs at? And
so you're saying leave
go
space.
Back downstairs and then be that embarrassing guest that has to buy another full-size luggage because you bought so much stuff.
Okay, got it.
Pack accordingly. Don't overcompensate. I would say just really think out clearly like what your outfits are going to be when you're on the ship after your days in port, because all 3 of us packed too much. And it's the same thing that we did in November. So we're still trying to nail how much to pack on a cruise and whatnot. It's also okay to underpack, because the beauty of Disney Cruise Line,
there's always something there.
Well, there's always something there if you need to get something, but they also have laundrettes.
Oh, perfect.
to where you can go ahead and wash your clothes and dry them.
Which most cruises also have that, and there's usually a nominal fee for that. But if you don't want to put 7+ outfits in your,
I would say do that, because worst case, you have to wash some of your jeans, you have to wash some shirts again to rewear them. That's not a big deal. You still have the space, because also know that when you're going in, you're going to be getting merchandise, especially if you're sailing to Alaska, because we did
such good stuff there.
So much damage. In the gift shop. I have like 5 different articles of clothing now that say Alaska.
That's
just me.
And for me, it'd be hats. Like, there's so many cool hats up there too.
There's so many different things. And it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, like and the thing I love about all of it is it's all definitely like, oh, this is where it's from. Even if it doesn't say Alaska across the front of it, you're like, oh no, this is from this part of the world, and that's fantastic. So you get back to Vancouver. How was the disembarkation process and heading back to the United States?
They had to metaphorically drag me off the ship.
Of course.
I emphasize metaphorically because I'm not actually going to do that, but I was upset having to leave the ship. Again, this is where the benefits of concierge come into play, because you get your priority debarkation. You meet in the concierge lounge on the day of your debarkation.
How early?
Like 8 a.m.
That's not terrible.
So you meet in the lounge. The hosts up there go ahead and bring you down. They call the elevator for you. They scan their ID, whatnot, which allows that elevator to be priority. So then they select deck 3, and your elevator doesn't stop along the way, because it's debarkation day. Everybody's trying to take the elevator.
Which can be a headache and a half, especially the people that decide they want to take their luggage with them instead of have it.
Exactly. And it works out perfect, because the elevator's on the highest deck. We're on deck 10. So nobody's going to be calling.
That could really suck. Yeah.
So deck 10 all the way down to deck 3, they escort us off the ship, so we get to avoid the big mess of people that are waiting in the atrium. And then we just get to walk off, get our luggage, everything like that. Super, super simple.
And easy to get to the airport, all that fun stuff.
We actually stayed that night there, but it was so easy to get to the airport the following day, going over, because we just, again, called an Uber, brought us to the airport.
There you go. So now that you've been on 2 Disney cruises, soon to be 3, which one would you put in your top slot, and what one would be second? I know it's an unfair question at some level, but itinerary-wise,
Alaska.
Okay.
If I'm looking explicitly at what ship I was sailing, the Disney Fantasy.
So let's go with the whole cruise, itinerary, ship, everything included.
I can't do that.
But people need to know this. Like, if you're going to spend your money on one cruise in the next year, so let's say 2026,
Alaska.
That's the cruise.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's...
I'm sorry, like, I love the Bahamas and I love the ship out there. I loved sailing on the Fantasy, but Alaska is truly something. There's a reason it's called the Last Frontier. It's like nothing you've ever seen before.
And just to give you a little bit of wiggle room, you would pick the Fantasy over the Wonder as a ship, but you would pick the entire experience of Alaska over anything else.
Exactly. Like, in my perfect world, it would be the Disney Fantasy or the Disney Dream sailing up to Alaska. And I know that might not happen, but I mean, hey, who knows? We could be getting a different ship up there, especially because Disney next year has 2 ships coming up there.
Maybe we'll get a new ship. Like, who knows? Yeah.
But it was amazing.
Stunning. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your trip with us. What should people do? We already mentioned at the beginning of the show, but if they're still listening, what should people do?
I would have people go ahead and follow the podcast on Apple Music or wherever you're listening to this podcast at. Make sure you leave us a nice 5-star rating. Go ahead and leave any comments or anything like that you have down below, because ratings and reviews really help get us out there.
Absolutely. And let us know what you'd like to hear about in the future, because we will definitely try to accommodate that. But thank you for listening. On behalf of both Johnny and I, we hope you're having a fantastic day. We also hope you have a Disney Cruise Line trip in the very near future. But make it a great one, and keep kind.
Yep, keep kind.